Hey Avish, what's up?
Hi, Sid. Finding you. How's things?
Could be better. The cricket was, as you know, deflating. I was really hoping for, I guess it was probably a miracle in hindsight, but after the first test, you were kind of trying to hold on to something great, but then not to be brutal to West Indies, but I felt that they sabotaged themselves by bowling first in the second test match and the third test match. Fine, I think they did it in the first test match, but that was the very first test match. I felt that, you know, because those first two matches were like back to back, I mean, the first and second, that logically they should have just batted first, sucked up the overhead conditions, and then, yeah, who knows?
Uh, uh, Geez, man. All I can say is, from a West Indies point of view, it's one step back, one step forward, and two steps back. That's how I see it. They performed so well in the first test. This third test is actually one to forget. Honestly,
Yeah,
really disappointing
yeah,
batting display.
like if we check out what happened like in this match here by the scorecard here, which I've checked up here on ESPN, as you can see, they really, I mean, did themselves no favor here in the first innings. But if we check it out from how England have done, they kind of had it already in that first innings because 350 was always going to be a competitive score, especially with their bowling attack.
Look, even a score 300, I would say in this test match, especially with the way the Windies batted in both the innings, would have been enough. To me, it seems like these batsmen have an issue. Yeah, it seems like they don't understand the art of test cricket, which means is to bat time, and
Yeah,
they haven't batted time in this test series. I think their attitude going into the match just wasn't right.
yeah,
I mean, from day one, you could see the bowling was flat. It
yeah,
was just on Saturday morning that they were doing a bit with the ball, but
yeah,
apart from that, the bowling was quite flat, and the batting was dismal
yeah,
in both innings. I mean, if you look at the scorecard, I mean, none of them got past 50, which
yeah. I
is quite.
was, yeah, I was actually
It's
looking
it's
at,
difficult to win a test match if
yeah, like I must admit that the shining
yeah.
lights out of this first inning was Roach. She's done really well for them. And then, yeah, they say in the batting it was like 197. That's never going to get you into the game unless England had a brain freeze and they batted really badly. But that was never going to happen. They were too motivated to make up for the first test
Look,
match. And I think Ed Broad has been outstanding
I would just
to,
say, I would just say something. Once the Windies batted their first things out, and it's 197, so it means they were literally 170 behind the game. You could
yes,
really see that there was absolutely no way back here. But I felt, with the rain around,
mm,
it washed out day four. Day five, they
yeah,
had a chance of salvaging at
yeah,
least a draw. But the application from the batsman was not there at all.
no,
I mean, they just try to play too many shots.
yeah,
Just trying to show the world that they can play so many shots instead of just seeing out the day.
yeah,
And just being a little bit more sensible. In their batting. I couldn't see not one player. This is the most disappointing thing. There was not one player that stood up. You know what? I'm going to fight here. I'm going to fight here. I'm going to take this to the end. And uh, a series, a drawn series would have been, wonderful for the Windies. I mean, it definitely would have boosted their rankings. Well, now it doesn't seem like it's going to boost their rankings. Uh, they came up against a player that's in red hot form now in I mean, what a spell! in both innings. 10 wickets in a match, incredible. I mean, he looked almost unplayable at time, uh,
Yeah.
especially in that second innings. He looked
Yeah.
really, really
Hmm.
unplayable at times. And then obviously, just when you thought it's over, Wokes comes in and cleans up the tail, which was very disappointing because I would think the Windies, if they could have seen out Broad and Anderson, it would have been a little bit easier, facing the likes of Wokes and Archer. And they made England's task so easy because I mean, England really didn't have to play a six bowler here in this match. They just wanted their four prong pace attack, and that did the job. Which means they didn't spend much time in the field like the Windies did. So it was raining. The bowlers were still fresh. They were running in, hitting their lines and making it uncomfortable for the Windies. And I think that already, it's one step forward and two steps back. We've gone back to this thing about consistency, and they just haven't shown any consistency. And I know Michael Hall also mentioned that this team just doesn't have the attitude, you know, especially the batting lineup to, to win test matches on a frequent basis because they just don't bet time. They don't know how to bet time. The Windies just don't bet time at all. Really disappointing. I could say the shining light was Rustin Church, which was the player of the series shared with Broad. But actually, if you look at Broad's
Yeah.
performances,
Yeah.
he usually take this one on any given day. I mean, I couldn't understand why he was left out of the first test because,
Yeah. I was just
I
gonna
mean, if
mention
he was
that.
there, I mean, only
Yeah.
God knows. I mean, this could have been a whitewash. This could have easily been
Possibly.
a whitewash.
But then,
Could
but
have
then we
easily
could
been a
argue
whitewash.
that if Broad had played the first Test match as a guarantee, maybe he wouldn't have bowled as well because he
Hmm.
would have taken it as a expectancy, a bit of I wouldn't want to say complacency, but when something is expected, you kind of go through the motions, right? But now when you get a bit of a jatka, which is I don't know if you know what that means in Hindi, but like a bit of a kick in the backside for something you didn't deserve, then you kind of are motivated, you're angry, you want to prove a point, and that's what happened in the last two test matches. So who knows what would have happened if he had played the very first test match. But yes, I mean, Broad is very good under these conditions. So kudos to him.
I mean, look, as much as the Windies were outplayed in this test match, there were a lot of things that went in their favor as well. Starting with the toss, which I
Yeah,
thought the captain got, totally
wrong.
wrong.
Especially the second test
I,
match,
I always said this, this being a deciding test match, you got to put runs on the board. You've got to
Yeah,
put runs on the board, and I just felt he lost the plot there because I mean, any team batting last would have obviously had it difficult because the pitch was deteriorating, and
yes,
things, and I felt they just lost the plot completely there. And then the batting, there just doesn't seem to be anybody in that lineup that wants to stand up and say, what, I'm one for a crisis. 369. Yeah, it's a good total, especially on English wickets, but it's not a total that should scare you. It shouldn't scare you like say 450, 500, which means you got to bat really well. I think
yeah,
I mean, fair enough. They avoided the follow one, but I mean, they at least needed to bat at least a day, at least a full day to make this competitive. And I just think they surrendered it in their first innings. 197 was just way below par. Uh,
yeah,
just nobody stood up. There's
yeah,
been like shots here and there, good shots, but nobody could get to those milestones. And
yeah,
they just needed one batsman in that in that top order to score 80 or 90, and the rest of the guys just chip in, and they would have been fine. They would have been in this test match, but you know, surrendering that that advantage completely at the toss, and then again with their betting in the first innings.
very depressing. I mean, thoughts of, and I don't want to sound like sour grapes or be controversial, but something all about all these certain situations make me think of the M word, but don't know if I want to say it on this video, but but it just feels like a bit of something fishy going on here, man. Because how can a team that plays so well the first test match can play so bad for the next two matches? Fine, England were great. But I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. It feels like and
Look,
imagine, right? Normally, sorry.
honestly speaking,
Okay.
yeah, sure.
No, I was just gonna say, like, how can a captain, especially normally captains, after the first test match, when they're back to back, they would normally just bat first. It's such a logical thing. Fine, it's different if the pitch was really green, but the pitch wasn't even green. The conditions were like normally team would just suck it up and then just yeah. It was back to back matches. Why put your bowlers through that? Doesn't make sense to me.
You know, I'd say on day one, you win the toss, you bowl first. Fair enough. That's your decision. But I felt they were very wasteful, especially towards the end of the day, bowling to the middle order, bowling to Butt, bowling to Pope. They gave away a lot of four balls. They allowed Pope and they allowed Buttle in, And, by the time, uh, we came to day two and the English tail wagged a bit as well. I mean, it was Broad had a stellar match. I think this was one of his best test matches because he also chipped in with the runs as well. In the first
Yeah,
innings, and he
but you
just
see,
compounded compounded the pain of the Windies. And yeah, as I say, 197 in that first innings, there was no way back for them.
no, you
But
see,
I feel England,
no, you see, I'm
they're
referring to
much more
the
lethal
second
bowling
test
attack
match.
with Broad.
Yeah. No, you see, I'm referring to the second test match, not this test match itself. Like this test match, it would have been okay to have bowled first because at least there was a bit of a break between the second and third. But the first two, right? I'm saying for the second test match, West Indies should have batted first because the bowlers needed some respite from the first match because it was, back-to-back test matches. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm referring to. Hmm.
Yeah, look, I'd say after the test match, whatever the Windies did, they just got their tactics completely wrong. Holder's captaincy was a bit questionable,
Yeah.
after the series. Look, I had high hopes for the Windies. I
Hmm.
obviously thought they were on the right path,
Yeah.
improving all the time. But it
Yes.
seems like now they've gone back. They still got a lot that they need to work on, especially away from home. I don't think they're very good when it comes to playing against attacks. They tend to capitulate at times. You've seen it. You've seen it in England. You've seen it in Australia. You've seen it in SA. I'd say it's very challenging for them to win in these places. Um, it's been a problem for them for a generation now. It seems they just cannot play well away from home. I like the way that they improved at home in their home conditions, but in order for you to be a very good side, you got to be able to tour well. You got to be able to play
Yes.
overseas
Yeah.
as well, which I think a team like India has improved quite drastically in terms of away performances because
Oh, yeah,
we
England.
all
Yeah.
know India was very strong.
Oh,
Yeah,
India.
I
Oh,
mean,
oh, oh,
anywhere in
you're
the
referring
world.
to
I mean,
India. Oh,
India.
sorry. I thought you said England. I got a bit confused. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
look,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, look. The Indian team has improved away from home. Um, there were times when they couldn't even win a test match away from home, but they seem to have been quite competitive in the past couple of years, and they they've changed their. I think they've changed their mentality in a way. They've gone in with a better pace attack, which obviously helps away from home,
Yeah.
and their batsmen as well. They've learned to play on challenging wickets, bouncy wickets. They've got better with the bounce, especially away from home in Australia, England,
Yeah.
even here in SA. They didn't play too badly. Yeah, although they lost the series, but
Yeah,
they
I
didn't
mean,
play too badly. It's
yeah,
just like if you compare the Windies, I mean, uh, I don't see the Windies win Test series in Australia or SA or even England anytime soon. It's just that it's the
yeah,
same old problems that pop up. It's those errors in the batting. The match awareness is not there at times. It's good to play in patches. I mean, but it's not good enough to win Test matches. You got to have you got to be on the ball from day one, and I just felt they were just total oil in this Test match. A very disappointing performance from the Windies.
yeah, man. It's like, yeah, I think the trying to remember now. I think we have discussed the man of the series. Oh, yeah, of course, we've discussed about Broad. We have said enough about him. I think Ruston Chase. It's an interesting. I think he probably did deserve it because I think he batted well, he bowled well. As you know, I've only been watching the highlights and catch up, so obviously I can only go by that. And I'm sure you watched more than I have.
Yeah, I probably watched a bit more. Wasn't the best viewing. I can assure you. Um, Look, a guy like Chase is quite a big player in the team, and obviously I expected him to step up today and try and take this deep, but obviously, I mean, they brought just the wind out of their sails yesterday, and then Wokes came in and just cleaned up the tail. Uh, Look, Chase had a good first and second, so you could say he was one of the star performers for the Windies, along with Roach and Gabriel, and then you can add a bit of breath there as well. There were bits and pieces performances, but in terms of England, well done to England. They've from the first test. I mean, they identified their shortcomings and they went back and it, and they came back a really energized team, and had that will to win, and they came out with all guns blazing in the second test, and then the third just was just a continuing of that good form they showed in the second test, and yeah, as I said, after that first innings deficit of 170, I mean there was no way back for the Windies, and not against this attack in their home conditions.
Yeah, pretty pretty sad, man. Because after I know I've spoken about this so many times, but like in the I mean, the Caribbean was so good. You were just hoping that at the worst case scenario it would be a draw. But then one thing I've learned, I think in the Caribbean, those pitches were so spicy, right? And I think there was also a bit of bounce. In this series itself, it was only seeming, but there wasn't any hectic bounce. So I think it kind of took half of the advantage away from the West Indies. I don't know if that makes sense to you. So these were just traditional good English
Um,
pitches, but these pitches weren't over the top. Like I've seen English pitches that were really over the top, but these were good pitches. I think they were fair.
Look, to be honest with you, I mean, the way the England batsmen showed application in the first and second innings,
Yeah,
it just goes to show. I mean, if you watch the ball clear, if you leave balls, you try and build an innings, there is runs to be scored, But
yeah,
getting back to that Caribbean series in 2019, I think England are a much better side at the moment. They're much more balanced. A guy like Pope came in, guy like Sibley. I mean, they didn't have that in the Caribbean. I think their middle order was a bit, uh, out of sorts in 29. But I mean, they worked on getting a solid team. Uh, I would say, Henley being dropped was probably a good move if you look at it now. Uh, Pope, just fits in to that middle order. I mean, he's made that position his own now, that number 5 position, and then you got Butler coming in. Yeah, England bat deep. They've got batsmen right down to number 10. So they're quite a the formidable team at the moment,
No, but like,
especially
no,
in
but like,
the
how would
home
you?
conditions.
But what were your thoughts on the pitches? You think the pitches were fair?
Look, I think the pitches were had something in it for the bowlers, and as I say, if you show application, there is runs to be scored. Just felt the Windies they didn't play to their strengths. I think they just misread the conditions completely. You know, they really misread the conditions completely in this test match.
Okay. On a final note, on two more things I would like to discuss with you: the umpiring. How you found the umpiring in the series?
Um, Look, umpires are human, like you and me. They're prone to mistakes. I think DRS has obviously been very helpful in managing errors caused by umpires. And to be honest with you, the umpiring wasn't too bad in this test match, apart from I think Mulder uh, Dissel, and the umpire got that one wrong. But I think in
No, you
general the
see,
umpiring was quite good.
no, yeah, you see, I was asking you about it because in the first test match, the umpiring was really shocking. I mean, two umpires that were umpiring were really good umpires, especially Richard Kettleborough. He's one of my umpires that I regard a lot. The second umpire is not so bad, but I felt these two umpires improved as the series went along. So I think they also had a point to prove. So yeah, I thought the umpiring.
Most certainly. I mean, I guess we look at umpiring decisions and so forth, but you've got to look at player performance as well. A lot of times you are going to play. I mean, you get one bad decision here and there. But I mean, DRS will obviously eliminate those errors.
Yeah, but you
Uh,
can't.
I think
Yeah.
from a windy point of view, uh, some of the shot selection, especially, like I mean, the shot yesterday that Bradwaite played, and he was like so off balance and he got caught in the catch. And another selection that obviously puzzled me in this test match was Cornwall. Because what was interesting about it was England didn't go with a spinner. You know that. I mean,
Yeah.
they had a spinner in their team, but they didn't use him. So I couldn't understand the thinking of the Windies to play Cornwall, and it just goes to show. I mean, spin is not their strength at all. I mean, it's generally the quick bowling. That's been their strength for a while now, and they just went against that in a way. Obviously, Chase is quite a reliable, but he didn't have a good test match as well. Especially, expected a lot of people to bat. It didn't come off. The top order they've got serious problems. I'm still, looking for an opening pair. Brathwaite, I would think would keep his spot. Uh, the other guy, Campbell, not too sure about that,
Yeah.
but questionable in terms of his shot selection. Shamar Brooks, uh, there's quite a few players there that are actually, they've got their places on the line at the moment.
I think what I was gonna ask you or try and get to, I think the next series will be against Pakistan, isn't it? They'll be playing against England next.
Yes.
Um,
Look, that's going to be another fascinating series. Uh, I expect the Pakistani to perform a little bit better. I expect them
bowling
to give
wise
England
and
a
batting
much more
wise.
stern test
Yeah.
than the Windies did. Yeah. No, most certainly. And you want, especially in test matches, you want to see a test match go distance. See competitive cricket. For over 5 days, which you don't tend to get these days a lot. Uh, Look, a guy like Azam is going to be very important to Pakistan in that series. Broad again is going to be quite a challenge to face on those wickets.
Yep.
Anderson, the wily old fox, uh, he's going to be difficult as well. There's a lot of things riding in England's favor. And congratulations to Broad. He's part of the 500 club now, and
Oh yeah.
joined the big boys now, big boys club, and
Oh yes.
thoroughly deserved.
I
I
was
think
just
he's come a
looking.
long way from
Yes.
he's come a long way from the 2007 T20 when he got hit for 6 sixes by Yuvraj. So
Yes.
he's come a long way as a player. You know,
But yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's no mean feat. 500 Test match wickets. Incredible feat. Uh, you know, I don't get a lot of bowlers actually taking 500 wickets these days because you don't get that longevity anymore in Test matches. And I feel Test matches have obviously taken a bit of a backseat. And we all still love Test cricket. But it seems like Test cricket is obviously taking a backseat from your your more popular versions, which are T20 and ODIs. I mean, ODIs is quite interesting at times. I
Yeah.
feel like people these days are just, the interest is just towards T20s. And I most certainly hope Test cricket it will survive. But I think, in a way, it's just losing that importance. And you see it in the West Indies setup as well. There's a lot of focus on T20, and there's lot less focus on Test matches. Uh, Look, the downside of that is you can have a good T20 side, but your Test side is going to suffer, and that's what's happening to the Windies now. They
Yes.
don't really have a Test side that's going to be competitive, and that can win Test matches on a more frequent basis.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think on that note, I I think for our next discussion, we'll talk about the England versus Pakistan series. And when I look at my phone, the first test match will be on the 5th of August. So, yeah, we'll do definitely a preview on that.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be quite an interesting series, And as I say, Pakis to obviously give England quite a challenge, but it'll be interesting. We'll have a look at the squads from both sides. I wouldn't think England would change much. I expect them to probably go in with the same squad. It'll be interesting to see what Pakistan, come up with, because they have a good pace attack, and let's see what they can, produce on these wickets. I would say Old Trafford would probably suit Pakistan as well, because they have bowlers that can move the ball around, and we all know how good Broad is in terms of that. So it's going to be a cracking series. So let's hope for better cricket than what we've seen. So yeah, competitive cricket, that's what we want, and that's what
Yeah.
the viewers pay money for.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time, my friend.
Okay, cheers, Sid. You keep well.